Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We've got Malekith here in his awesome lizard limo. Check this thing out, man. Super cool. And I'm going to be taking the Dark Elves up against the proud Dawi, so hence the lizard limo here. Let's go ahead and jump straight into the army compositions. I've got a front line that's a mix of Bleak Swords and Black Ark Corsairs, just for some nice cheap units. It allows me to go fairly wide. We've also got two Dark Shards with shields. Shields are very important here because you'll expect to be facing Quarreler and Thunderer Fire, and definitely want to have that missile block chance. Out on the flanks, we've got four Cold One Chariots, 4 units of Cold One Chariots. And they're very, very strong against the Dawi. Of course, they have armor-piercing missile attacks, anti-infantry, armor-piercing melee, and very, very strong. Of course, they do rampage. One potential downside, you have to be careful that they don't take too much damage on the way in. But the goal here is to just come in with both of them on each flank and kind of blow up my opponent's formation, then come in with the infantry to just clean up shop, while Malekith, you know, kind of runs shop all over the place. So let's see how it goes. For my opponent's army composition, let's see, he's got Thorgrim Grudgebear, very good stuff. He's got that melee attack buff, lots of other good spells. Looks like he did bring the High King as well, so if Thorgrim gets below, if he gets low, he'll potentially trigger that buff. So Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, Longbeards with great weapons, Grumbling Guard, and more Longbeards with great weapons. We've got Miners with Blasting Charges out on the flank. We've got also some Quarrelers, very good pick here. They can help zone out Witch Elves and, you know, Dark Shards, so on. We've also got 1 unit of Dragonback Slayers, very good stuff with their speed debuff, and 1 unit of Miners, so very fun. I also failed to mention I have 2 Dark Riders who are going to be just running some disruption. So let's go ahead and kick things into full gear. So my opponent's deployed on this hill over here, so I'm going to have to advance way across the map to get to him. He's got a fairly heavy artillery presence, so I will take some damage on the way in. It's just a matter of what targets my opponent picks. Looks like he's teeing off on these Black Ark Corsairs, which is a decent pick. Probably wants to be targeting the cannon on Malekith himself. But I am coming in with these, just pressuring on the flanks, and the issue with the gyrocopters is the Cold One Chariots have an armor-piercing missile attack, so the gyrocopter can't just come in and get free fire on them. They'll actually shoot back and deal quite a bit of damage to the gyrocopters. So we're just going to come in with an early charge here, just disrupting these miners, and going to be doing some nice shock damage and armor-piercing melee attacks. Fortunately, we did get a little bit bogged up there, but you can see the miners taking some nice damage. We are going to need to be careful, though, again, that these guys don't take too much damage. Charge from the Dark Riders here straight into those Quarrelers. Very, very nice. So this flank is fairly adequately disrupted. We're going to be able to not take too much damage here. Meanwhile, we've got Dark Riders coming along this flank. The Slayers are being pulled away here, which means I'm going to be able to punch in these Dark Riders over here. And meanwhile, this unit of Miners is pretty much done for already. These Quarrelers have taken about half their HP in damage. Longbeards with great weapons now collapsing to support here. The Dark Riders were seen off, but they were able to do quite a bit of damage to the Quarrelers there, and again, distract these Slayers. So rather than collapsing on the Chariots like they should, they've gone after these Dark Riders, and they're now going to be coming over to this flank where we've just collapsed with more Dark Riders, using the Chariots in tandem here to just quickly dispatch these Miners. Malekith dropping a Blade Wind right in the center here, doing some massive damage to those Quarrelers, and already things are looking rough for the Dawi. You can see the disruption is key here. We're going to get Black Ark Corsairs now charging into these Longbeards with great weapons. One-on-one, the Longbeards with great weapons are going to win, but all disrupted like this and having taken the shock damage, with the Chariots continuing to run rampant, it's going to be a rough time for the Dawi. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass here clashing epically with the Bleak Swords. You can see the Dawi leadership diving into the front line here. Malekith, though, is punched through into the second line here, got his sights set on this cannon here, and hopefully doesn't take a point-blank shot there. That would be a bit unfortunate, but these Bleak Swords are going to be a good pick on these Miners. Definitely get in there. Meanwhile, the Dragonback Slayers just aren't able to contain all these mobile units at the same time. Only 1 unit of Slayers is a bit thin, but you can see Malekith is disrupted the back line. The balance of power is slightly in my opponent's favor, but the Murderous Prowess now going off, which is going to give our melee troops in the front line a really nice power buff. Dark Shards with shields just seeing off those gyrocopters here, and those you can see the Longbeards with great weapons we should be winning this fight, but with all the support from the chariots and everything, it's really, really rough. This one unit of Cult 1 chariots is rampaging, so that's unfortunate, but the other ones are able to stay under control. They're going to be pushing these guys kind of up towards the edge of the field here. So, meanwhile, this cannon's still online, but having a hard time finding a line of sight that's not obstructed. Dawi were able to break my center here, but again, the idea with this build is just to completely blow up the Dawi formation. You can see we've got a pocket of fighting here. These miners on this side are now being seen off. We've got these guys just content to just use some of their armor-piercing missiles, firing into the back of these Dragonback Slayers for a second. Armor-piercing isn't super pertinent, but of course, you know, taking out those Slayers is key. Nasty Gaze of Malice, I believe it's called, into those Longbeards with great weapons. They're also getting shot in the back by those Dark Shards with a nice crossfire. Meanwhile, these Black Ark Corsairs holding up admirably here against the Grumbling Guard. We're going to get a nice rear charge from the Cold One Chariots here, just running over those beautiful green-clad Dawi. And another Blade Wind just coming down here on the center. It did catch some of those Bleak Swords, but again, they're just Bleak Swords, so no big worry about that. Malekith and his Lizard Limo are going to get in here and do some nice armor-piercing attacks, and they're definitely taking some bites out of these poor little Dawi that are having to carry Thorgrim around. I mean, granted, it's probably a great honor to have to carry the toilet seat, but, you know, they're definitely regretting their life decisions at this point. Ungrim is trying to get screened by these Bleak Swords here, but unfortunately Malekith has the mass to keep up with him, whereas the Dragonfire Pass are going to be more than a match for the Bleak Swords. Things are still surprisingly close, but you can see this flank, the Dawi are still holding up a little bit here, but other than that, most of their units have been collapsed and rounded off. We've still got these two Cold One Chariots, just finished pushing off a couple units here. We're going to bring them back towards the fight. And, yeah, just dealing some armor-piercing missiles into the back of these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass here, since the battle line has kind of shifted to favor me. And, man, the Dark Shards are super good in this matchup. I would say the Dawi versus, wow, holy cow, that Gaze of Malice. The Dawi versus Dark Elves is one of the rougher matchups for the Dawi, just because the Dark Elves have a lot of really good answers. The Cold One Chariots are an absolute menace to the Dawi, especially in as many numbers as I brought them here. Malekith on his Cold One Chariot is also an absolute menace. My opponent didn't have any Tormentor Swords. He did have the Runesmiths for the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, but I didn't catch him putting that on the Chariots, which is what I would think you'd need to use them on. I think the Tormentor Sword, here's the way I kind of see it. If you're going up against a faction that has just heavy cavalry and doesn't have any chariots, bring two Runesmiths. If you have a faction that has both, maybe bring one Runesmith and one Thane. That way you at least have the Tormentor Sword to hardlock chariots, because the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, while it will slow them down, isn't going to be the most effective damage. It's going to be a little bit more effective against traditional cavalry. So I would say, like against the Empire and Bretonia, for example, bring two Runesmiths. Against someone who you think is going to bring a lot of chariots, bring Thanes, and that way you can get the Tormentor Sword to hardlock them and, you know, collapse with Slayers and so on. But well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that. I haven't used this build too much against the Dawi, but in this battle it managed to get some pretty good success. Very good stuff. 107 kills on these Cold One Chariots. This one only got 29, but 76 and 63 is great as well. The Dark Rider is doing some early disruption. They got killed off pretty quick, but again, just the disruption is what I'm looking for here. This unit of Dark Shards got pretty well shreked by the something. I'm not really sure. Maybe the cannon fire. But 29 kills on these Dark Shards they managed to pull out in the end. And the infantry just able to hold. In a few pockets they did very well. 78 kills on Bleak Swords. I think that's the one that got a hold of those miners. And Black Ark Corsairs, 54 and 45 kills. Considering they're fighting mostly up against Longbeards with great weapons, that's very admirable. 53 kills on Malekith himself is very nice. For my opponent, a decent kills spread all the way across the board. 70 and 68 on the two artillery pieces respectively is very, very nice. The gyrocopters are not really a pick I would recommend here. Anyone who has armor-piercing missiles is going to terrorize gyrocopters, so definitely would leave those at home. I do like the pick of the Quarrelers here. Bugman's Rangers are also very nice because they have regeneration. They're also pretty decent in melee, so you know, they are more expensive than Quarrelers, but I like them a little bit better in this matchup. I like the Dragonback Slayers, and of course Longbeards with great weapons are great against the Dark Elf front line, so I like that pick. Miners with blasting charges are always a nice utility unit, but these ones got collapsed on pretty hard. Again, I would probably say against a Chariot faction you want to bring a Thane rather than a Runesmith, just because you get that hard lock rather than the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which is more, again, damage focused and also has a slow. But hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.